On the night of her sister's glamorous 50th birthday celebration, Evelyn Marsh expected polite smiles, maybe a distant hug, the usual in a strained family drama. Instead, in front of everyone, her mother called her useless, and her father ordered security to throw her out. It wasn't just public betrayal, it was an attempt to erase her. From the family, from the company, from her own story. But this time, Evelyn refused to disappear. This is an emotional story of quiet but relentless revenge. A powerful and inspirational story about standing up for yourself when those closest to you turn their backs. If you love drama storytelling, tales of family conflict and ultimate justice, this is one you won't forget. Like, share, and subscribe now to HT Family Drama. Family stories that stay with you. Don't forget to turn on notifications for more emotional family stories every day, because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones we live through or never dare to tell. On her sister's 50th birthday, Evelyn Marsh expected a smile, maybe a polite hug, and the kind of small talk families exchange when they've grown distant. Instead, she was thrown out of the party by her own parents. It was a crisp evening in Vermont. Through the mist over the Lakeview Country Club glowed like a jewel. Chandeliers spilling amber light over the ballroom, shadows of laughing guests drifting across the glass. From the driver's seat of her car, Evelyn watched the celebration she wasn't sure she wanted to join. The plan was simple: walk in, wish Margaret a happy birthday, and leave before anyone noticed. But something about tonight felt heavier. She stepped out, heels crunching on gravel, and entered the warmth. Polished wood, champagne, roses. Near the center stood Margaret, radiant in a deep red gown, blonde hair in a perfect chignon, diamonds catching the light. Evelyn began weaving through the crowd when a hand clamped on her elbow. "Evelyn," her mother said. Smooth voice, steel eyes. Dressed in cream with pearls, Linda Marsh leaned close. "Try not to draw attention tonight. Margaret's worked very hard for this party. We don't need distractions." "I just came to wish her happy birthday," Evelyn replied. "Then be quick about it." Evelyn moved forward, but then her mother's voice rang out, louder, public. "You've always been useless, Evelyn. Just stay in the corner and try not to embarrass us." That was the first cut, the one everyone in the room felt but pretended not to see. Her father's voice followed. "Security, please escort her out." The man who once clapped the loudest at her piano recital now ordered her removed. Evelyn didn't argue. She walked out into the cold night, heels echoing against marble. In her car, she gripped the wheel, not to drive, but to steady herself. She had been dismissed before, but never like this, never so completely, so publicly. And in that moment, something inside Evelyn shifted, but Evelyn wasn't done yet. The drive home was a blur of winding roads and scattered headlights. The small Vermont town lay quiet. Dark storefronts, faint TV light behind lace curtains. She entered her silent house, set down her purse, and walked straight to her home office. A leather-bound notebook waited on the desk. She opened her laptop, fingers moving with precision. Shareholder portals, trust fund accounts, joint holdings her parents believed she had forgotten. They hadn't erased her completely. Not yet. That was their mistake. She began to type. Not a rant, not an emotional plea. A plan. Assets she still controlled. Legal rights they'd overlooked. Names of people she could trust. Notes on Marsh & Co.'s vulnerabilities, step by step. Each keystroke, a quiet act of defiance. She looked at an old photo of herself between Margaret and Peter, their brother. She barely recognized the girl who believed loyalty meant silence. Loyalty without respect is just obedience. And she was done obeying. By Saturday morning, whispers had begun. Raised eyebrows at the farmer's market, hushed tones at the flower stall. By Monday, a colleague from years past texted, "Saw the paper. Everything all right?" The Burlington Daily Chronicle ran a small piece. Marsh family faces internal dispute over company shares. No names, but locals could read between the lines, and Evelyn knew her parents would be scrambling. At Lakeview Cafe, she sipped coffee as nearby tables speculated. The younger one's making a move. No, it's the older sister in trouble. Evelyn stayed silent. Her phone buzzed. Peter. Mom's furious, says you're embarrassing the family. I'm not doing anything that isn't mine to do, she replied. She says you're unpredictable. Then let her think that. And that was exactly what Evelyn wanted. By Thursday, the first real crack appeared. Claire, an old friend inside the company, whispered over the phone, "They've been locked in the conference room with lawyers all day. Something about a transfer of shares not going through." Evelyn smiled to herself. She didn't want their empire to collapse overnight. No, she wanted the walls to close in, inch by inch, until they realized they'd built the trap themselves. She moved pieces carefully, redirected dividends into unreachable accounts, reclaimed long-forgotten assets, altered her voting rights in quiet but decisive ways. It was all legal, all quiet, almost invisible. By Friday, town gossip had shifted from if something was wrong with the Marsh family to what exactly was happening. That evening, Margaret called. "You've made your point. Now stop before this gets worse." "Oh, Margaret." Evelyn's voice was calm. "It's only just beginning." It was late Sunday afternoon when Claire called. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I found something. You need to see it." They met an hour later in the quiet back corner of Harbor Grounds Cafe. The smell of cinnamon and espresso hung in the air. Claire's coat was still on, her hands wrapped around a paper cup. Without a word, she slid a small black USB drive across the table. "I shouldn't have this," she said, eyes scanning the room. "But you need to know, it's not just about the shares, it's everything." Back home, Evelyn plugged it in. A folder appeared instantly. Internal, confidential. Hundreds of files, board minutes, contracts, email chains. One subject line froze her breath. "Finalizing removal of EM." She opened the first email. From her mother. "I don't care how you do it, but make sure she's out completely before the next fiscal year. No voting rights, no profit share, nothing. She's dead weight." Weeks later, from Margaret, "Legal says we can expedite by claiming she relinquished her stake years ago. The paperwork is easy to forge. Dad's fine with it." It wasn't neglect. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. And that truth hit harder than the humiliation at the party. She kept reading. Property deeds, wire transfers, memos detailing how they'd funnel her portion into Margaret's account under corporate consolidation. When she finished, her tea was cold. The room was silent save for the hum of the heating system. She copied the folder to her encrypted drive, removed the USB, and locked it in her desk. Then she picked up the phone. "Jonathan Price? It's Evelyn Marsh. I need a meeting. Complete confidentiality." Jonathan, a sharp corporate attorney she'd met at a charity event, didn't hesitate. "Bring everything." That night, Evelyn didn't sleep. She printed key documents, highlighted names and dates, built a detailed timeline of their betrayal. At 3 a.m., she stood at the window, the lake hidden in darkness. She thought of her mother's voice calling her useless, her father ordering her out, Margaret warning her to stop. She smiled, not from joy, but from certainty. They had underestimated her, and now she was ready. Next morning, her plan was clear. Confront them directly, in a place where they couldn't twist the narrative. Jonathan's office. And now, the moment Evelyn had been planning for. The law office of Jonathan Price was on the top floor of a renovated brick building downtown, windows overlooking the gray sweep of Lake Champlain. The waiting area was warm and quiet, all dark wood and leather chairs, the faint scent of coffee lingering in the air. Evelyn arrived 15 minutes early. She preferred to be the one waiting. It gave her time to settle into the space before the others arrived. Jonathan's assistant led her into the conference room. The table was long and polished to a mirror finish. At the far end sat Jonathan himself, flipping through a folder. "You've brought quite a storm with you," he said with a small smile. "Good," Evelyn replied. "I intend to use it." The first to arrive was Margaret. Camel-colored coat, perfect hair, eyes sharp with irritation. "Evelyn," she said coolly. "Margaret," Evelyn replied, matching her tone. Then came their parents. Linda entered first, pearls at her throat, perfume arriving a second before she did. Charles followed, tall, unreadable. Jonathan gestured for them to sit. "Thank you for coming. I understand there have been disputes regarding company assets and shareholder rights." Linda wasted no time. "This is unnecessary. Whatever grievances Evelyn has, we can settle them privately. Family matters should stay within the family." "You mean where you can control the story," Evelyn said, gaze steady. Margaret bristled. "Evelyn, don't start." Jonathan raised a hand. "Let's keep this orderly. Evelyn, you requested this meeting. The floor is yours." Evelyn slid a thick folder toward him. Inside, printed emails, forged documents, minutes from the USB drive. Linda's voice iced over. "Where did you get those?" "From someone inside the company who still remembers what integrity looks like." Margaret's jaw tightened. "These could be taken out of context." Jonathan's voice was measured. "Not when they're accompanied by financial records, notarized property deeds, and timestamps. I've reviewed them. They're damning." Charles finally spoke. "You think you can come in here and threaten us?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "No, Father. I'm not threatening you. I'm informing you." She leaned forward. "You tried to erase me. You forged my signature. You moved assets under false pretenses. You called me useless in front of half the town, and you thought I would walk away quietly." Linda scoffed. "And what? You're going to sue your own family?" "If necessary," Evelyn said simply, "but that's not my first choice. I'm offering you one chance to make this right." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "And if we don't?" Evelyn's voice dropped to a near whisper. "Then every document in that folder goes to the state attorney's office and to the press. I'll make sure the Burlington Chronicle's little article looks like a puff piece compared to what comes next." Silence, only the faint tick of the wall clock. Jonathan cleared his throat. "I suggest you take her seriously. The evidence is strong. A quiet resolution is in everyone's interest." Linda's fingers drummed once on the table. "What exactly do you want?" 1. Immediate restoration of my full shareholder rights. 2. Transfer of all misappropriated funds back into my accounts, with interest. 3. A formal written statement acknowledging my position in the company. "And if we agree," Margaret asked, "then I walk out of here, and this never sees daylight," Evelyn said. "Consider it my last act of loyalty." Linda's gaze was cold. "You've changed, Evelyn." "No," Evelyn replied. "I've stopped pretending." Jonathan looked between them. "You have 48 hours to respond. After that, we move forward with legal action." Evelyn stood, gathering her bag. She looked at each of them in turn, letting silence speak for her. At the door, she paused. "One more thing. Don't mistake my silence for weakness again. You won't like what happens if you do." Outside, the air was sharp and cold. Evelyn walked down the steps without looking back. She didn't know what choice they'd make, but for the first time in years, she wasn't waiting for their approval. This time, she held the power. The next 2 days passed with the slow, deliberate weight of a ticking clock. Evelyn kept busy. Morning walks along the frosted lake, afternoons sorting paperwork unrelated to the Marsh family, but deep down, she was waiting, and she knew they were too. On the morning of the deadline, snow flurries drifted past her kitchen window. Her phone buzzed, Margaret's voice clipped and formal. "We've reviewed your Demands. Mother isn't pleased. Father even less so. That's not a surprise, Evelyn replied. We're willing to negotiate on some points, Margaret tried. No, Evelyn said. There's no negotiation. You have the list. You're forcing our hand. I'm giving you a chance to fix what you broke. The call ended without agreement. 2 hours later, Jonathan called. They're stalling. Hoping you'll blink first, I suggest we move forward. Do it, Evelyn said. By that afternoon, formal notices were filed with the state attorney's office and sent to the Burlington Daily Chronicle. The next day's headline was blunt. Marsh family faces legal investigation over shareholder fraud. It named names. It cited forged signatures, unauthorized transfers, and potential criminal penalties. Evelyn read it once, folded the paper, and set it aside. This wasn't about revenge. It was about drawing a line they could never cross again. 2 mornings later, the storm broke. Jonathan's voice on the phone carried quiet satisfaction. They've signed, he said. All of it? Every point. Full shareholder rights restored. Funds returned with interest, and a public statement acknowledging your rightful position. It'll be out Friday. Evelyn thanked him and hung up. The stillness in her house felt different now. Not heavy, but calm. That afternoon, she drove into Burlington. At Harbor Grounds, Claire greeted her with a grin. You did it! We did it, Evelyn thought, but simply smiled. Back home, she found a thick envelope in the mailbox. Inside, the formal letter embossed with the Marsh & Co. seal. At the bottom, 3 signatures. Linda, Charles, Margaret. She stood on her porch under the pale winter moon, the snow glittering like glass. She thought of the party, the humiliation, the cold drive home, and of the night she sat at her desk and began the plan that changed everything. Her phone buzzed. A message from Peter. I don't agree with how you did it, but I'm glad you didn't back down. Evelyn smiled faintly. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. In the weeks that followed, she attended company meetings, asked pointed questions, and made it clear she was paying attention. One afternoon, Margaret crossed paths with her in the hallway. You won, she said quietly. Evelyn met her eyes. No, Margaret. I reminded you I was never yours to erase. On a clear February morning, Evelyn stood by the frozen lake, the air sharp in her lungs, and for the first time in years, she felt peace, not because there were no battles left, but because she knew she could fight them and win. In the end, Evelyn's story isn't just about reclaiming what was stolen. It's about standing tall when it's easier to stay silent, because no one can erase you, unless you let them. So hold your ground, protect your worth, and never be afraid to write your own ending.